going to a different economy, and we're going to be learning more about that as we go. But clearly, we're learning that things can be done from remote locations. We're learning that technology can replace people even more than we thought.
We're not going back to the same economy. We're recovering, but to a different economy, and it'll be one that is more leveraged to technology. And I worry that that is going to make it even more difficult than it was for many workers.
In Silicon Valley, and my friends who work in technology know that what we did to the manufacturing workers, we are now going to do to the retail workers, the call center workers, the fast food workers, the truck drivers, and then even bookkeepers, accountants, insurance agents, lawyers, and on through the economy. So what happened to the manufacturing workers is a very clear sign.
This effort, and China has big plans for this. They intend to seed their digital yuan into the global environment by giving it away to visitors at next winter's Olympics. When they arrive at the airport, they're going to get yuan digital wallets. They're going to receive digital yuan. They're going to use it throughout their visits to Beijing, and then they're going to take it back to their home countries. They see this as a huge advantage. Why? Because who controls the underlying protocols, who controls the underlying standards of the future of money will control the future of money.
But they don't produce inflation for one simple reason. They do not own a printing press on which you can turn out green pieces of paper. The only such printing press is in Washington. I say printing press, of course, in the modern age, we do it in a more sophisticated way. We use bookkeepers and accountants and computers. But it comes down to the same thing. Inflation is made in Washington because only Washington can create money. And any other attribution to other groups of inflation is wrong. Consumers don't produce it. Producers don't produce it. The trade unions don't produce it. Foreign sheiks don't produce it. Oil imports don't produce it. What produces it is too much government spending and too much government creation of money and nothing else. Yes, sir.
One Bitcoin is always going to be one Bitcoin, and there are only 21 million of them. And all these other currencies are very volatile as they slowly disappear from use. And inflation is just an artifact of all that. These governments are trying to print more money to be more relevant, while we all know that as soon as I can buy my food, clothing, and shelter in Bitcoin, I'm not going to want to hold, and neither will anyone else, any cryptocurrency, any currency that's tied to any fiat political force. So I think this is one of those. And so, yes, we're going to experience a lot of inflation, and they're going to keep printing dollars because that's what they do. When a government is in a tough bind, they print more money, and what that does is it lowers the value of the money that's out there. And so I think we're going into a period where they're printing a lot of dollars, and they're printing a lot of currency from all these other.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that video just to make you think. And right now, the topics have been inflation. Is Bitcoin a hedge against inflation? No, it is not. We have Tim Draper say, as currencies disappear, Bitcoin rises. But guys, we know that currencies are going to be just tokenized, stable coins. That's how the Fed is going to stay in control. Stable coins, CBDCs, unlimited supply. Bitcoin and cryptos are for the algorithms, robots, and drones. Then we have Jerome Powell stating they're going to pull out the tools for inflation. Guys, what is the only tool for inflation? That's right, to raise rates. That's the only tool they have in the current economy. But we know for the fourth industrial revolution, we're going to go through hyperdeflation. And that's when cryptos are going to take the forefront. But we know the New World Order works off what? Problem, reaction, solution. Remember, there's a main event that's going to shock the world. And remember, the Crypto Teacher told you, because he knows. When it comes to the New World Order, it's all planned out. You have a wonderful day.
And lays out some important premises of what creates inflation. And I'm sure you're familiar with the fact that the M2 money supply has gone up very dramatically. You're familiar with the Federal Reserve holdings and trillions of dollars of debt, the very dramatic increase on your balance sheet. I know you're aware of this because you were there. And the money in circulation. And this comports with, again, going back to chapter 9 of Milton Friedman's book, and he goes in and talks about the inflation that took place in the 1970s, and he has a series of charts showing the supply of money. So here's the United States, and he goes on and shows the supply of money in Germany and Japan and the increase in prices, and then also the United Kingdom and Brazil. And so all of this is going to a very central point that when you increase money, and actually let me quote Mr. Friedman here for a second. When the quantity of money increases more rapidly than the quantity of goods and services available for purchase, we have inflation. You have printed too much money, sir, and that money has created inflation. To stop the inflation, I would recommend to you to stop printing the money. You indicated yesterday that you're going to start to slow down the printing of money. I think you should stop it, and stop it right now. Inflation is on the minds of Americans. Poll after poll for the last many months, 70, 80% of Americans, it's a top issue for them. They're concerned about inflation. Inflation is eating away their purchasing power. It is actually robbing them of the increases in wages that we've seen because their purchasing power is down because of the inflation that's created by the money that's being printed. Would you like to respond to that?
Sure. So price stability is one of our two goals, the other being maximum employment. We have to balance those two goals when they're in tension as they are right now, but I assure you we will use our tools to make sure that this high inflation we're experiencing does not become entrenched. If I may also add, though, the connection between monetary aggregates and either growth or inflation was very strong for a long, long time, which ended about 40 years ago. So the so-called velocity of money became quite variable. And so now we think more of just the imbalances between supply and demand in the real economy rather than monetary aggregates, which isn't to say that that was wrong when written. I think it was probably correct when it was written, but it's been a different economy and a different financial system for some time. Nonetheless, your point on inflation, well,
of deficit spending created inflation.
It did boost demand, and that is one of several factors that are involved in inflation. But we, absent the pandemic and the supply chain problems we've had and the negative impact pandemic has had on the supply of labor.
What's interesting, Secretary Yellen, if I just to finish here, what's interesting is that Milton Friedman wrote in 1979, no government is willing to accept responsibility for producing inflation. And you, ma'am, have just embodied that denial because your deficit spending is creating the inflation that the Americans need relief from now.
First, we're going to go talk to our friend Steve Liesman with a look at the comments by Fed Chair Jay Powell that created global market turmoil yesterday. Steve.
Morning, Andrew. Yeah, the main takeaway for investors from Fed Chair Powell's comments yesterday before Senate banking has to be it's now the default position of the Fed at its December meeting to discuss and likely enact a faster pace of taper, or as J.P. Morgan calls it, the turbo taper. In fact, J.P. Morgan writing this, it now looks like it will take a deterioration in the virus conditions to prevent the FOMC from deciding to quicken the pace of tapering at the next meeting. That's December 14th and 15th, of course. So now it's up to the new variant to prove it's bad enough to dissuade the Fed. Powell's comments came along with the Fed chair retiring the word transitory to describe inflation and otherwise raising his level of concern over prices. So what does this look like? Well, roughly every $5 billion increase in the taper announcement would bring forward the end of the Fed's $120 billion in monthly asset purchases, which are designed to help bring down interest rates. So if it doubled from the current pace of $15 billion to $30, the Fed would end the asset purchase around February with a little bit left over instead of May. I think that may be the odds-on choice here that the Fed doubles it. That faster taper, of course, raises the possibility of quicker rate hikes. But it's worth noting commodities, including oil, have all declined sharply. So both with the new virus scare and with Powell's comments. So it could be that a faster taper will do some of the heavy lifting in controlling inflation, limiting how fast rate hikes come or how far they have to go. Andrew?
Were you surprised?
The most powerful person in the world. is the storyteller. The storyteller sets the vision, values, and agenda of an entire generation to come. Steve Jobs. And guys, you know I truly believe in this. When you look at the New World Order, they're the storytellers. And that's the reason why I wrote my New World Order book. But guys, now it's time to change the current generation. And I wrote 3 kids' books. You know, I love the Trinity because I understand the power that's in it. So I have 3 books. We have an opportunity to change the generation, to educate, not just me, but I want to show you that I take action on a daily basis. And I want you to take action on a daily basis. Whether it's your job, whether it's in your community, we have an opportunity right now to educate the masses. I posted this on my Twitter account. Please share, but this is a short clip of the 3 books. There's going to be a clothing line and action figures. Please get these books for your kids, nephews, cousins, friends, so therefore we can start the re-education now. Because as we see, the 4th Industrial Revolution foundation is definitely here. Robots, algorithms, drones, taking humanity out the picture. We have to re-educate. But let's get into the video.
Part 1. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save the village. Part 2. King Joshua and Grandma Tam save New York. Long COVID-33. Part 3. King Joshua and Grandma Tam goes to China.
It's mandatory to get part 1, part 2, and part 3 of this series. It's time to re-educate Generation Z.